Hi, and welcome to Starz Recapped. Today, we're diving into the Belgian apocalyptic sci-fi drama thriller series titled Into the Night, originally released in 2015. Spoiler alert. Proceed with caution if you haven't seen it yet. The story opens at an airport in Brussels where a man named Terenzio rushes in, clearly panicked and in a hurry. At first glance, it looks like he's just late for a flight, but the truth is far more unsettling. He heads to the help desk and urgently asks for any ticket headed west. The earliest flight is still 2 hours away, but he purchases a ticket anyway, just to gain access to the terminal. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the airport, a popular influencer named Inez is video chatting with a friend in New York. Suddenly, the friend chokes and collapses, leaving Inez shocked and helpless on the other end of the call. Back outside, TV screens capture something terrifying. News anchors and live show hosts are passing out on camera, one after another, triggering panic and confusion among the onlookers. It's not just the news anchors, an entire street of people is suddenly lying unconscious on the ground. Most viewers assume it's some sort of bizarre prank. Everyone except Terenzio, who knows exactly what's happening. Realizing it's time to act, he rushes toward the terminal. Spotting a distracted guard, Terenzio seizes the moment. He grabs the guard's gun and demands everyone step aside. He storms onto a plane that's just about to depart for Moscow. Only a handful of passengers have boarded when he bursts in and holds them all at gunpoint. The pilot is missing, and the co-pilot, Mathieu, refuses to cooperate with what he believes is a hijacking. During a struggle for the gun, a shot is fired, injuring Mathieu's hand. Outside the cockpit, panic spreads among the passengers. Flight attendant Gabrielle does her best to calm everyone down. Terenzio reemerges and shouts, asking if there's a pilot on board. A woman named Sylvie stands up, though she's only a retired military helicopter pilot. Under Terenzio's command, Sylvie and a wounded Mathieu manage to take off with all the passengers on board. However, the gunfire has damaged the avionics, cutting them off from all outside communication. Now airborne, Sylvie and Mathieu try to reason with Terenzio, but he remains firm, revealing that he's a NATO officer and that the world is facing a threat no one on board understands yet. Pressed for answers, he finally reveals the terrifying truth. The rays of the sun have become lethal. Terenzio reveals a chilling truth. Starting the next day, the sunrise will kill everyone, even those hiding indoors. The phenomenon has already begun wiping out lives in eastern countries like Japan and Korea, and if they don't stay ahead of the sun, their plane will be next. Mathieu and Sylvie are skeptical. They suspect Terenzio might be mentally unstable, despite his insistence that he knows what he's talking about. "I might sound like a fool," Terenzio says, "but I'm not." Meanwhile, Mathieu's hand is bleeding heavily, raising concerns about his ability to continue flying. Fortunately, one of the passengers, Laura, is a home care nurse who had been tending to an elderly man with dementia. She steps up as the only person with any medical experience. With no proper medical tools on board, they resort to cauterizing the wound with a heated knife. Mathieu screams in agony as the smell of burnt flesh fills the cabin, sending the passengers into a panic. Realizing that fear could spiral into chaos, Mathieu tries to calm everyone. He announces that, under Terenzio's orders, they'll be making an unscheduled landing before continuing to their original destination. He quietly hopes that military jets will intercept them and take control. After all, they were hijacked at gunpoint. But Sylvie isn't so sure. Something tells her they're completely on their own out here. Meanwhile, another passenger, Ayaz, overhears their discussion about the sun. He grows suspicious. Is the pilot really telling them the truth? Suddenly, an Arab passenger begins coughing violently before collapsing unconscious. In the chaos, Ayaz rushes to help, but it's a ruse. As he kneels beside the man, Ayaz grabs Terenzio's gun and quickly takes control of the situation. At Ayaz's command, Terenzio is locked inside the restroom, and attention turns to Mathieu, who is now forced to explain everything. The co-pilot admits they're en route to Iceland, a destination chosen simply because it lies to the west. Terenzio's only demand. There, the local authorities are expected to arrest him, and the rest of the passengers will be set free. He also shares Terenzio's terrifying claim that the sun's rays are now deadly and exposure could be fatal. This revelation throws the passengers into a panic. Many begin connecting the dots. Strange events they'd noticed before boarding, mysterious deaths on the news, and fear for their family's safety back home. Trying to maintain order, Mathieu takes full responsibility as the acting captain, promising to do whatever it takes to keep them alive. Later, as the plane approaches Iceland, they attempt to contact air traffic control but receive no response. As the aircraft descends, the grim reality becomes clear. Multiple planes have crashed on the ground, scattered across the airport like wreckage from a war zone. People are running in panic, confirming Terenzio's warning was real all along. But with the runway blocked and fuel running low, landing is impossible. They only have enough fuel left to make it slightly further west, to Scotland. With no better option, the captain sets course and hopes for a safe landing. Terenzio is finally brought out of the restroom to give a full explanation. He reveals that he learned the truth about the sun by overhearing a secret conversation among his NATO superiors, and ever since then, he's been doing everything he can to outrun the coming dawn. Terenzio admits he doesn't know why this is happening, or when, or even if it will end. All he knows is this: to survive, they must keep flying west, outrunning the sunrise. Meanwhile, the Arab passenger who collapsed earlier is still lying on the floor, struggling to breathe. As he nears cardiac arrest, he gasps out a shocking confession. I swallowed diamonds. Laura, the onboard nurse, tries everything she can to save him, but it's too late. He dies, taking the truth of his mysterious cargo with him. At the same time, the plane performs an emergency landing in Scotland, with Mathieu managing to stop it just seconds before crashing into a wall. As they disembark, their phones light up with missed calls, texts, and news alerts. The internet is flooded with headlines. The sunlight is killing people. Half the world is dead. The rest are waiting. The airport is eerily deserted. Those who could have already fled, and the rest are hiding in darkness, hoping it'll keep them safe. But recent reports say that even bunkers aren't protecting people anymore. The deadly rays are too strong. Suddenly, 3 men in RAF uniforms approach the group asking for help. With just 45 minutes before sunrise, the passengers scramble to gather supplies and prepare the plane for another escape. One passenger, Jakob, an aircraft engineer, pleads to go back and rescue his pregnant wife. But for the safety of the group, he's forced to stay behind, a heartbreaking decision. After refueling and stocking essentials, they take off again. One of the RAF men is a trained pilot and advises them to fly away from the equator, since the sun will catch up faster in those regions. Their next destination, Canada, where they plan to refuel once more and repair the radio. Sometime during the flight, the internet reconnects, and everyone's phones begin pinging with final messages. Heartbreaking farewells from loved ones who have already perished back in Brussels. Soon after, one of the passengers discovers an article theorizing that the disaster is linked to a solar polarity shift. Another passenger, Horst, a climate scientist, understands what that means. He explains that every 11 years, the sun's magnetic field naturally reverses polarity, but it usually has little to no effect on Earth, and thus it's been poorly studied. However, over recent decades, the solar reversals had been weakening, until now, when it may have snapped too far in the other direction. If Horst's theory is correct, the Earth is being bombarded with gamma rays wherever sunlight touches, causing instant death across the globe. But with most scientists likely already dead, there's no one left to confirm the theory. Just then, Ayaz comes across a breaking news report. The RAF servicemen who joined them aren't soldiers at all. They are Afghan terrorists, recently arrested and en route to deportation before the disaster struck. Outside the plane, tension rises when one of the supposed RAF men gets into an argument and shoves the elderly man with dementia, causing him to fall and die instantly. The horrific act stuns the passengers, who now clearly see the terrorists for who they really are. Sylvie quietly informs Mathieu about the news report revealing their true identities, and the two agree. Once they land in Canada, they'll abandon the imposters. A short while later, the plane touches down. They have roughly 2 hours before sunrise. The city is eerily still, littered with the corpses of those who didn't escape the deadly light in time. The terrorists are asked to search for radio repair parts in a nearby shop. They agree, but insist on taking Gabrielle and Jakub along. The catch? Jakub knows about the plan to trap them, but Gabrielle does not. At the shop, Jakub locks the terrorists in a back room and urges Gabrielle to flee with him. But confused and afraid, she refuses to go, unsure of what's really happening. With time running out, Jakub doesn't argue. He escapes and makes it back to the airport, but is pursued by the terrorists. Gabrielle, tragically, is left behind. The plane takes off without her. As the terrorists arrive at the runway, they fire at the aircraft, and a bullet cracks one of the windows. Fortunately, the damage is contained. As long as the cabin maintains stable altitude, the window will hold. On board, a terminally ill boy named Dominic is among the passengers. Ayaz tries to comfort him, but Dominic's overprotective mother, Zara, tells him to back off. Then, a hopeful moment breaks through the tension. A radio signal comes in from Hawaii. Though the message is brief and cuts off quickly, it hints that survivors may be living in an underwater bunker protected from the sun's rays. Matteo is eager to fly to Hawaii, believing it's their best shot at survival. But Sylvie disagrees, arguing that chasing a vague signal halfway across the world could be a fatal mistake. Meanwhile, Terenzio grows increasingly frustrated that the captain makes all the critical decisions. He demands a say, and eventually, the passengers agree to vote collectively on all future actions. Just as things begin to settle down, multiple alarms suddenly blare inside the cockpit, signaling a critical aircraft malfunction. After assessing the issue, Matthew makes a grim discovery. One of the terrorists who chased the plane during takeoff has latched himself onto the landing gear. As long as he's there, the plane cannot land safely. In a desperate move, Matthew decides to ascend to maximum altitude, hoping the freezing temperatures and lack of oxygen will force the man to let go. But he forgets one critical detail: the cracked window. As the plane climbs higher, the pressure difference causes the window to shatter, triggering chaos inside the cabin. Objects are sucked out, the air roars, and passengers cling to their seats in terror. Matthew immediately drops the plane's altitude, and Jakub quickly boards up the broken window with a wooden plank, buying them precious time. The cabin slowly settles, but Dominic, the terminally ill boy, is struggling to breathe. His respiratory tube was lost in the mayhem. Thinking fast, Ayaz improvises a new tube using an oxygen pipe. Zara, overcome with gratitude and guilt, thanks him, clearly regretting her earlier judgment. Matthew then addresses the passengers. Hawaii is no longer an option. At their current altitude and condition, they'll never make it in time. Instead, he proposes landing on Attu Island, a remote strip of land in Alaska, their only realistic hope. But there's another problem. The terrorist is still clinging to the landing gear. The turbulence failed to shake him off. Ayaz, Jakub, and Terenzio head to the undercarriage, where they cut a hole in the floor to get a clear line of sight. Terenzio peers into the darkness and points his gun downward, but the terrorist grabs it from below, nearly pulling Terenzio down with him in a sudden, violent tug. Just as Terenzio is nearly pulled down, Ayaz arrives in time and shoots the terrorist, saving his life. For a brief moment, Ayaz is hailed as a hero among the passengers, but the celebration is short-lived. Soon, the group learns a disturbing truth. Ayaz was connected to the death of the Arab passenger earlier in the journey. Back in Canada, they had buried the man's body, and a local witnessed Ayaz cutting open the corpse's stomach. Pressed for answers, Ayaz confesses he's a con artist, smuggling diamonds from Brussels to Moscow. The diamonds were hidden inside the Arab man's body with his full consent. But the man panicked during the flight and failed to follow Ayaz's instructions, which led to his accidental death. The revelation sparks outrage. Some passengers demand that Ayaz be abandoned, just like the terrorists, but after a heated vote, the majority decides to spare him. As a compromise, Ayaz is handcuffed and confined to the avionics bay, no longer free but not cast out. Later, the plane lands briefly in Alaska, where they refuel once again before taking off. As they soar back into the sky, Horst, the climatologist, makes a troubling discovery. The fruits they picked up in Canada taste bland, almost flavorless. He theorizes that the gamma rays are so powerful, they're altering the atomic structure of organic matter. The result? A significant drop in nutritional value. If it continues, the passengers may starve within weeks, even with food on hand. Matthew listens but insists their priority remains survival, escaping the sun, not worrying about long-term nutrition. But his tone is different. In fact, he's been acting strange for hours, edgy, erratic, and increasingly agitated. When Sylvie gently suggests he get some rest, Matthew snaps at her, yelling in frustration, something completely out of character for the usually calm pilot. Realizing Matthew is no longer fit to fly, the passengers gently force him out of the cockpit and insist he get some rest. Though clearly frustrated, Matthew agrees and promises to sleep for a few hours. Soon after, the group picks up a mysterious signal on the radio. Two voices are heard speaking, but the only decipherable phrase is Stara 17. After some deduction, they realize one of the voices belongs to a cosmonaut currently in space. The fact that he's alive stuns everyone, but more importantly, he's communicating with a ground control station still active on Earth. Hope reignites. They decide their best chance lies in returning to NATO headquarters in Brussels, the very place where everything began. According to calculations, they'll have 4 hours of darkness after landing, just enough time to search for classified information about the rumored secret bunker, with Terenzio's insider knowledge guiding them. But trouble strikes again. Laura finds Matthew unconscious in the restroom. His previously wounded palm is now severely infected, causing blood poisoning, the true reason behind his recent erratic behavior. The infection is spreading fast. Amputation of the infected tissue is the only option. Laura believes she can perform the surgery, but only if they reach a proper hospital in Brussels. The bigger problem? Sylvie can't land a commercial plane alone. The passengers beg her to try. She's the closest thing they have to a pilot, but Sylvie protests. Her experience is limited to helicopters. Horst urges her to step up, reminding her that if she doesn't try, everyone will die. Reluctantly, Sylvie agrees. The group helps by showing her training videos on how to land a plane. But when the moment finally comes, Sylvie freezes. As turbulence shakes the aircraft, panic grips the passengers. Despite the chaos, Sylvie pushes through. The landing is rough and nerve-wracking, but ultimately she brings the plane down safely. The passengers erupt in applause, their cheers echoing through the cabin, a rare moment of triumph in the face of disaster. Without wasting time, the group splits up into 3 teams. 2 men stay behind at the airport to refuel the plane. Laura, Zara, and a small group rush Matthew to the nearest hospital. Terenzio, Ayaz, and Riek head straight to NATO headquarters in search of answers. At the hospital, they're met with a grim sight, bodies scattered across the halls, evidence of a desperate attempt by citizens to escape death before sunrise. Despite the carnage, Laura stays focused. She orders the group to ignore the chaos. They need to save Matthew's life. And time is running out. While the team works to save Matthew at the hospital, Zara gathers as many medications as she can for Dominic and anyone else who might need them later. Meanwhile, over at NATO headquarters, Terenzio leads Ayaz and Riek into the abandoned conference room where he first overheard the conversation about the sun's deadly transformation. With time running out before sunrise, there's no way to sort through all the documents. Thinking fast, Riek checks the surveillance system, hoping the cameras might have captured something useful. While Riek is away, tensions flare. Terenzio makes an offensive comment about Ayaz's Turkish heritage, triggering an argument. In the heat of the moment, Terenzio strikes Ayaz, knocking him to the ground. Ayaz hits his head, losing consciousness as blood pools beneath him. Unaware of the violence, Riek scans through old security footage. There, he uncovers a critical piece of intel, a group of officials discussing a secret underground bunker beneath a dam in Bulgaria. The bunker's code name? Stara 17, the same phrase they heard earlier over the radio. Excited by the discovery, Riek turns to head back, but Terenzio intercepts him, calmly lying that Ayaz already left. Back at the monitors, Riek notices Ayaz's body, lying in a pool of blood. Fear silences him. He says nothing, unsure what to believe or who to trust. With only 30 minutes left before sunrise, everyone reconvenes at the airport and begins boarding the plane. Matthew is still weak, but recovering after his emergency surgery. Terenzio tells the group that Ayaz left earlier in a car and never returned. With sunrise approaching fast, they have no choice but to leave without him. Just as they prepare for takeoff, engines roaring to life, a vehicle screeches to a halt in front of the plane. The door swings open, and to everyone's shock, Ayaz steps out, bloodied but alive. In the next scene, Terenzio is handcuffed and locked inside the avionics bay, his fate hanging in the balance. Sylvie gathers the group and lays it all out. If the plan to reach the Bulgarian bunker fails, they won't have enough fuel or time to make it anywhere else. This is their last shot. She warns them, once they land, they'll have only 20 minutes to reach the bunker by car. Every second will count. Meanwhile, Ayaz is in the restroom when he suddenly suffers a brief seizure. It lasts only a few seconds, and he assumes it's from blood loss, but he keeps it to himself, not wanting to worry anyone. When he steps out, the group asks what should be done with Terenzio. Though still angry, Ayaz chooses mercy. Rather than leave him behind to die, he allows Terenzio to come with them to the bunker. A short time later, they land at a deserted airport in Bulgaria. With the sun racing toward them, the group splits into two vehicles. Sylvie leads the way in the first car, and Ayaz drives the second. But partway through the journey, Ayaz suffers another seizure. This one's stronger. He loses control and the vehicle crashes. The lead car is already too far ahead to notice, and with time rapidly running out, catching up becomes nearly impossible. At a key intersection, Sylvie makes a critical decision and turns right. Her group reaches a half-open gate, but as one passenger tries to open it further, they're violently thrown back by a surge of electricity. To make things worse, the gate only stays open as long as someone holds a button. In a moment of redemption, Terenzio volunteers to stay behind and hold the button, allowing the others to get inside the bunker. Sylvie cautiously agrees, but before she leaves, she handcuffs him to the control post to ensure he can't run or betray them. He'll only be free when the others arrive, and by then, it might be too late. Meanwhile, Ayaz and his group take the left path at the intersection, eventually arriving at a similar gate on the opposite side of the dam. With no way to open it, they use their clothes and teamwork to climb over, pushing forward despite the odds. Miraculously, both groups reunite at the bunker's main entrance, having reached it through different paths but just in time. There, they're greeted by military personnel who escort them inside and confirm what they've longed to hear. You're safe now. Outside, Terenzio remains alone, handcuffed and exhausted. With the sun creeping over the horizon, he looks up at the sky, whispers a quiet prayer, and says, "Do your worst." Moments later, he's consumed by the sunlight, paying the ultimate price, perhaps with a hint of redemption. And that wraps up the gripping story of For Into the Night, a suspenseful apocalyptic thriller where survival depends on outrunning the very sun. So, what did you think of the series? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, leave a like, and turn on notifications to catch more breakdowns like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay in the shadows.